Hey everybody, Matt here for AVC and welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to be showing you how to finish our DIY utility cabinet system. Let's get to work. If you want to see more videos like this, please hit that like button so others can find them. And if you haven't joined our team yet, please hit that subscribe button so you can follow along with our complete build. Today on our list, we're going to be showing you how to make some minor repairs that may have happened during construction. We're going to be showing you how to sand down these cabinets in preparation for spray. Then we're going to be spraying primer and ultimately spraying bed liner on these cabinets. We're also going to be cutting some aluminum trim to protect all of your corners and edges. This utility cabinet system is for sale from AVC, and check out that link in our description below. So during construction, one of my brad nails accidentally shot through the side of the cabinet here. So we're going to be pulling that through with a pair of pliers. We're going to grab it with pliers and then just smack it with a hammer and pull that thing all the way through. Then we'll repair the surface. So I'm going to take my nail set. I'm just going to pull that nail out a little bit so I have enough room to grab it with my pliers. Then I'm going to take my channel locks, because they're going to give me the best grip, but any kind of pliers you have are going to work well. I'm going to go ahead and grab these with my pair of pliers, and then I'm going to hit this with my hammer and pull it straight down and through. There we go. Our nail is now gone, but we're going to need to sand this, and we're going to hit this with a little putty to repair the area. Our next step is going to be puttying up all these pin nail holes from our assembly. Now, we can go about puttying these in a few different ways. One, we could use Bondo, but that's going to be through a chemical reaction, and we have to keep in mind like the off-gassing and our health, so we're not going to be using that today. The other two products here are a color-changing wood filler and just a straight-up regular wood filler. I like the one that comes in a tube because it ends up staying moist longer, so if it's sitting in the cabinet for a longer time, it's going to last longer. Now, it might look like we're sponsored by Minwax today, but we're definitely not. But hey, Minwax, if you're watching, hit me up in the comments below. As we start to fill these holes, there's a couple things to keep in mind. One is that the pin nail holes that are through the field are going to be the most visible, so we want to do the best job covering those. Things that are along the edges, we here at the shop are going to cover with aluminum trim, but if you're not going to be cutting trim for your cabinets, just make sure you do a good job there. So as we go through, I can just squeeze a little bit out on a few of them here, use my putty knife, scrape them flat. Just do a little bit at a time. Here in Colorado, it's super dry, so this stuff is going to kick real fast. I like to use this dark wood filler because it's easy to see, and I end up painting these things dark anyway, so it hides well. Now, if you're going to be painting your cabinets a light color, I would definitely go with a lighter color than this black that we're using today. So just keep that in mind if you're going to be doing a light color on your cabinets, or if you're going to just stain these and keep them the nice wood look, then you definitely want to match your birch the best you can. Another thing to mention is that I'm going to be spraying these with bed liner, and bed liner has a texture, but as I first started doing these a long time ago, I found out bed liner does not cover these little holes, so make sure you do this step if you're going to be shooting bed liner to have the best product. All of our pinholes are now puttied up. I didn't cover any of the interior pinholes in the cabinet because honestly, I don't really care if there's a couple holes showing inside my cabinet. I am going to completely finish the insides, but if there's a little dimple or something like that, it's inside the cabinet, I'm not too worried. I do have a couple of chips that happened during assembly. So here where I drilled out this lower section for hardware, I got a little chip here. We're going to hit those as repairs next. I'm going to leave it a little heavy on this spot, and then I'm going to sand it back down. It should be just fine. I have a couple of little chips here along these grills that when I was routering. Let's make sure we get these filled up as well. The last thing we're going to repair before we start sanding is going to be where we glued in this little door divider. We're just going to hit these edges, make sure everything looks nice, and then we're going to do a pretty aggressive sand on this area, but I want to make sure we don't have any pockets. So I'm really going to try and push it into that seam, make sure I fill up that interior as much as possible. All right, once everything is dry, let's go ahead and sand it up. This is a pretty cool tool to mention. It's just a little Velcro sanding block, but the cool thing about it is that it uses the regular 5-inch discs that go on our orbital sander. They just Velcro right on here, and man, I love this thing. We are setting everything up now to paint, and I just wanted to point out these little nail boards that I like to use. I make these with scraps of wood around the shop, and I just blast my pin nail gun through them. They're really nice, so I can paint something that's double-sided, and after something's been painted, I can set it down on these just to get the best finish possible. Now that our sanding is complete, we're ready to move on to painting and priming. Now, we're going to be bed lining these cabinets, but in order to extend our bed liner and get a little bit better coverage, we're going to be priming the cabinets first. So I'm just using a water-based project primer. We're going to be applying it through this Wagner paint station. This thing we covered in our adhesives video, so this can work for your water-based adhesive as well as doing any painting and other projects around the house. So handy tools. Another thing I did to this primer was I had my big box store tint it because a darker color is going to get us a little bit better coverage since I'm going to be going with a dark bed liner. So a nice easy thing, and it's a free addition at the big box store. Before I start priming this thing, I'm going to blow my cabinets off, and since I can take this off of my gun, I'm going to just use this as my blower and dust off all these cabinets. All of our parts are dusted off and we're ready to start painting. The way I like to start my painting is hitting all the double-sided parts first, so I can give them the maximum amount of time to dry before I flip them over. So I'm going to start with all the doors, hit all the insides of the doors first. I'm going to hit the backs of my faceplates first. Then I'm going to do the insides of my utility boxes. Then I can do the outside of the utility boxes, flip my faceplates, flip my doors. Just kind of go from the inside out. Let's make sure we use our personal protection here before we start atomizing anything and get to work. Let's do it. Now that our primer is finished, I forgot to mention that if you want to use that natural wood look, it's totally acceptable to just spray a polyurethane onto these cabinets. So rather than spraying our primer, go ahead and spray a clear poly and you're going to be just fine. Our utilities are now primed and we're ready to move on to the next step in finishing. Here at AVC, we like to put on just about the most durable finish we can in our garage of the van. And for us, that product is Raptor Liner. Now, there are a bunch of bed liner options out there, and we have found that Raptor Liner is the easiest and best for us to apply here in the shop, and probably the easiest and best for you to apply at home. Raptor Liner comes in a complete kit, so we come with the urethane, the hardener, even the spray gun. So the only thing you need at home is going to be an air compressor. So it's a little bit more of an advanced thing. You need some advanced tools, mainly an air compressor, but it's definitely doable at home if you have the right space. Finding the right place to apply your Raptor Liner is something you're going to have to take into consideration. So personally, I live in an HOA and my driveway is this big, so there's really no way I could spray this at home. But where I grew up, my neighborhood had a little bit bigger driveways, my neighbors were cool and were a little more spaced out, and I could definitely apply this there in my neighborhood. So you're going to have to use your best judgment if this is something you can do in your driveway, or if you're going to have to find some other professional that maybe can apply this for you. So let's talk about what we're going to be applying today. We are going to be using a Raptor Liner kit. So for us to spray these utilities, since we've already primed them, it's going to take 4 bottles or a 1-gallon kit. The 1-gallon kit comes with 4 bottles, the hardener, and it even includes a spray gun. So it's super easy to do. It's got everything you need. We are actually going to be spraying a tint your own version here at the shop. So it comes in black. This is pre-mixed black. It's just ready to go. It also comes in a tintable version, so we can add our own colorant to this. And on our Amazon, we'll have links to colorant options. So there are a few different kind of colors you can get that are pre-done. Here at AVC, we moved on to doing custom color, and I order this through a local automotive paint supplier. So our local automotive paint supplier mixes up colorant, and it's just like a regular automotive paint, but it has no binders in it. So we can go to the store, we can choose a color match for our van if we want, and I've done that in the past, it's really cool. Or we can just look at their fan deck and choose whatever color out of the book we want, and they'll mix it up and we can add it to our bed liner and be ready to shoot. So it gives us tons of finish options, really cool colorizations. The sky's the limit as far as your imagination. Before we start mixing up colorant with our bed liner today, I want to mention some safety. So by far, this is the most toxic thing we do in a van, and there's really no way around the toxicity that is involved in spraying bed liner. So whenever we apply bed liner here, we want to make sure we have really good ventilation, and we happen to have a cross-draft paint booth here, so that works really well. But if you're spraying outside, you're going to have lots of ventilation, so that's good too. But no matter what you're doing, you want to make sure you're wearing a proper mask. So this mask has my dust particle filters on that, and that is not going to do. So what I need to do is change these out for an activated charcoal carbon filter. And what activated charcoal carbon means is that carbon in this filter is going to be actively pulling contaminants out of the air, which is why I bag them up in between uses. So these things run on a limited exposure time. We get about 20 days per cartridge, and I find that about 5 applications overwhelms these filters. So 3 or 4 is probably a better, safer bet. They cost about 15 bucks, but man, is it worth protecting yourself. So go ahead, buy a good filter, and then take care of them, bag them up when you're not using them. So we can just swap these out onto our mask, and we're gonna be ready to go. I'm gonna put my new filters on my mask, I'm gonna mask up, and we're gonna mix this thing up and get it ready to spray. So if you're just not able to spray this product on, it's totally acceptable to brush and roll it on. The finish is gonna be a little less consistent, but it's definitely doable and it's gonna be just as durable in the future. So we're going to be adding 3 ounces of our colorant into our bottle and 8 ounces of our hardener or our catalyst into our bottle. Then we're gonna shake it up to mix everything up. We're gonna screw it onto our spray gun and we're gonna start applying to our boxes. Now, those of you who are not so familiar with applying finishes and things like that, we just wanna make sure we have a consistent spray pattern, a consistent distance. So I like to be about 18, 20 inches away from everything. I'm gonna apply 3 bottles of this to all of my cabinets inside and out using the same principles we used when we applied our primer. I'm gonna keep 1 bottle in reserve so that if I need to do any touch-ups and when I do my final finish on all these cabinets, I have that 1 bottle to hit a little bit of everything. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna mix up 3 bottles of this and we're gonna get to spraying. We're done with our first application and we have applied 3 bottles to these cabinets. Now after 3 bottles, everything is coated pretty well and I've done this a few times so my finish is looking good, but let's take a look at some detail spaces that may need more attention with our 4th bottle. So I grabbed one of our doors here and specifically I want to check these inside corners and my end grains to make sure these have a nice thick coating and they're fully coated. A lot of times if I have an extra application that's needed, it's going to be in some of these places. The back sides of my doors are coated, the front sides of my doors are all coated, everything here is looking good. I also want to check similar spaces on the faceplates to make sure the inside edges of all those faceplates are looking good. So the last thing we want to check before we mix up that 4th bottle is the surface finish. So looking here at the top surface, if I have some uneven variation, or if I maybe was a little heavy in some parts and a little lighter in others, with this 4th bottle is where we can even everything out. And the way I like to do that is I'll take my 4th bottle, and after I've hit my detail places that specifically need more coverage, I'm just gonna mist the cabinet from about 3 feet away. Now, by spraying it into the air and letting it kind of mist on top of the cabinet, it's gonna give us a more uniform finish. It's gonna kind of cover up any of those heavy spots or those light spots and make them look very similar. It's also gonna smooth out that shine. It's gonna give us a consistent looking sheen across the entire cabinet. Our final coat is on the cabinets and these are looking good, and we've installed the hardware in our doors. Our last and our bonus step here is going to be cutting metal trim to protect the edges of these cabinets. Here at ABC, we like to trim all of our utilities in aluminum to help protect the corners of these cabinets. Now the garage of our van is going to be a really high abuse space. We're loading bikes in and out, we're loading gear in and out, and the most likely thing we're going to do is ding one of the corners of these cabinets with a pedal, something like that. So trimming these out in metal is going to help protect the cabinet and keep them looking good over time. Although I'd really like to include some pre-cut and ready to go trim for these cabinets, the honest truth is we're just not there yet. This is a new product for us. I've never found somebody that can do really nice machine reproducible miter cuts. And until we get there, we want to offer you this cabinet. And this is a really easy DIY step you can do at home. So let's grab our tape measure, a pad of paper, and let's get to work. All right, my first step is going to be measure the front of my cabinet. And we are at 69.5. And what I like to do is draw the shape of all of my parts on a piece of paper so that I understand how they're going to look at the end of the day. So the front of this edge is going to be 69 1/2. Then I'm going to measure the returns. So from here at the very front, I'm at 9 9/8, but I actually want to cut this a little long. So I'm just going to cut a 10.5 inch long piece, and I can lop off a 1/2 inch at the end of that to get the tightest fit. And I'm going to wait for my verticals till I get the complete top cut. So let's grab some aluminum and head over to the saw. The trim we're cutting today is a 1 inch by 1 inch L angle. We're using a 1/16 inch wall. I also should note, our chop saw, we use a 100 tooth saw blade here. So it's a much finer tooth blade than you would have on just like a regular construction rip saw. It lets us cut nice clean cuts on aluminum and hardwoods. I'm gonna start with one of my inside miter cuts. Before I do any measurements, I'm just gonna cut the end to an inside 45 degree. Whenever I'm cutting something real thin like this, I like to back it with a sacrificial piece of wood. It helps it not grab that aluminum really fast and helps me get a nice smooth cut all the way through the material. So I always back it with a little piece like this, And then we want to make sure we have proper hearing protection and eyes. With my first miter cut made, we're going to swap our saw over to our second miter. We're going to flip this around and measure from our mitered point. And what I always like to do is mark the outside corner of my cut and then draw the shape so that I know the direction of my miter on the part. Our top trim is rough cut, and we're just going to dry fet them in place. So I have my front corner here lined up, and this is looking really good, but I did cut this back edge long on purpose, and that's because it's really easy to cut a 90 degree at the back of the cabinet and get everything to fit perfect. It's really tough to knock a little bit off of this 45 degree edge at the front. So what I'm going to do is dry fit it. I have my corner placed together. It looks nice here. And then I'm just going to trace on the back side of my aluminum. And then I know I can take this to the saw and cut off at this section here, and everything's going to fit just right. Another thing to note before we walk away and cut these side trim pieces to size is let's take a measurement from the bottom of our cabinet to the bottom of our aluminum, and we're going to cut those verticals as well. After we got all of our trim cut to size, we took some measurements and marked where we want to drill holes to mount this trim. So I did 1 inch off a 90 degree end, and I did 1.5 inches off a 45 miter. After we drilled our holes, we took our random orbital and we gave everything a nice sand. That evened out the finish on the aluminum. And if we wanted to have this be our final look, this actually doesn't look too bad. It's ready to go as is. You could just mount this thing up. But if you are going to go that extra step and take them to powder coat, now they're prepped for powder coat, and it's going to make it a little bit cheaper on that part of the job. With our finishing complete, we're ready to move these cabinets in the van and start installing. But we're going to save that for another video. So if you found this video helpful, please hit that like button. If you have an idea of a finish that we didn't talk about on this video, please let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. We'll see you on the next video.